that students are doing. So some of the things that we have developed out in terms of the framework for the climate research campaign, this is built on GLOBE. There's a tremendous number of resources that are already available over the 15-year history of GLOBE. It's a great foundation. It's Earth system science, and climate is just a part of that Earth system. So we're based on GLOBE protocols and GLOBE learning activities. We're not looking to create a whole new suite of materials, because if you actually go back and look through the teacher's guide, most of it's in there. It's just a matter of kind of pulling it out and making sure that we can look at it cohesively. We're also going to map these to standards and also to the climate literacy principles. In your binder, on the inside flap, there's a little flap, and there's a couple of our new brochures, which is also something that we worked on out of the GLOBE program office. So you have a new brochure on the GLOBE program and one on the Student Climate Research Campaign. The third brochure is actually this pamphlet that you see here, which are the climate literacy principles, which is an interagency document that was created in the United States, but it has a really nice layout of things that are really important that any informed citizen should know about climate so that they're climate literate. As Ed mentioned earlier, we want to make sure that we have varied levels of participation. We completely recognize that some schools are very fortunate to have GLOBE as an integral part of their curriculum, while others, the teachers really struggle to be able to participate. And so we want to make sure that participation can happen at any level and for any length of time. And we're also very cognizant of the fact that we're hoping to not only help them understand the difference between weather and climate and help them conduct research, but along the way, they're gathering a lot of 21st century process skills. The scientific skills, but also communication, global understanding, things of that nature. The main crux of the climate campaign, as you've probably heard or read about, is really to encourage local research. So looking at your local area and really focusing on developing out research questions that are relevant to the students in that particular area and conducting inquiry around it, but then looking at that and sharing with the larger GLOBE community. And I put in between there community contributions. The best way that I can describe what we're trying to do for the climate campaign, and all of the staff in the Science and Education Division have this same vision, if you will, is we want to provide a framework for you. You can think of this sort of as like a grid or something, okay? We will provide a framework, we'll work to get the technical infrastructure up, but you know what you need in terms of or what materials you have already that you're using that focus on climate. And so we need those community contributions to fill the framework. And that's why we're really excited about the opportunity to talk with all of you, because I know that many of you are doing climate and climate inquiry in your areas and in your schools. And so we use those materials and build on those. And of course, the bottom line is that we want to educate, we want to inspire students to understand and be good stewards of the earth. We want to empower them, and there's some great stories if you have a chance to talk with Eric or others of us who were at Live Earth. The empowerment that you saw in students when they were explaining to just citizens that came by, explaining to them why water quality was important and why pH was important. They actually stood a little taller, and that's exactly what we want as one of the end results here. So things that we're trying to do to create this framework, okay? Research is a really difficult thing to do. If you're a scientist, sometimes it's very challenging. For students, it can be very challenging, and sometimes it's a little bit overwhelming for teachers. So moving beyond that, observation and inquiry and actually looking at systematic research, we're going to develop out a scaffolded approach to research that follows very much the model that the ESSPs have been working on over the past couple of years, that all of you will get to experience in the professional development here these couple of days. I hope that this pleases some of you. We are recognized that we want to be able to share all the great work that students are doing. And we have, as Karen pointed out, a very complicated, somewhat dated technical infrastructure. And we are trying to prioritize those things that we need to update and improve. And one of the things that we've heard in the GLOBE program office is that the ability to submit student reports is very important. And so we've actually put that as a very high priority, in particular in support of the climate campaign. We're also working to develop out a Globe International Scientist Network, and you can't see it very well, but we have a logo for the Globe Scientist Network. We have a new logo for the Globe Schools Network that looks very close to this. We have a new logo for the Alumni Network, and we're working on one for the Parent Council, so we'll have a nice cohesive set. And we have been laying the framework. When I've talked to some of you actually at regional meetings, I indicated that, you know, we do want to involve scientists in the regions and local countries. And so very shortly we will I'll be communicating with you on how we can actually get all of this scientists into our framework of the Scientist Network. We are looking on increasing the ability for schools to communicate and collaborate, and the Google Maps, the school pages, the teacher pages, those are the first steps. And you're going to see more as the months go on, as Karen pointed out, of those tools for collaboration. But rather than kind of wait and unveil it all at the end, there is some very good functionality in the maps and the pages right now, and so we felt it was better to actually share that with you so that people can get used to it, create individual accounts, and so on. We are working with several groups to help develop professional development modules on climate science, because that is an area that many teachers and just, you know, many citizens are not as comfortable with. And again, we'll be reaching out to the broader community to help populate that with international resources. We are working with two particular groups that were funded specifically to look at climate change. One is at the University of Colorado Boulder, and the other is kind of a consortium called the Clean Network, where they're actually looking at lots of different climate resources. And so the first suite of those in particular, those new professional development modules, will be available in February, March. And the professional development is mapped to the climate literacy principles, the brochure that you have. So we're trying to create a lot of synergy here so that we have a nice roadmap moving forward. We're working on web content migration. We want to make sure that we have all the tools available to everyone and that they're all in one place and easy to get to. And then, as Karen pointed out, one of the critical things from my perspective is data and having access to data. And it's a very, 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 very difficult challenge. When working a lot with graduate students, it takes them 6 months to get their data in order before they can do research. And so we have to figure out a way that we can provide fundamental data to understand climate for teachers in a way that they can access and they can use and make sense. And so, as Karen pointed out, we're focusing on temperature and precipitation because those are the atmospheric variables that fundamentally define climate. And we'll start with that, and we'll get those out in the system and make sure that they're accessible and everybody can use them, and then we'll build from there. Okay, there are three components that we have identified for the framework of the climate campaign, and there's a Venn diagram that's going to appear here shortly and has been on our webpage for a little bit. This was actually devised in consultation with our NASA scientists through many series of meetings, and we're looking at, it's a little bit hard to see on the screen, but three different components, and there's arrows, bidirectional arrows that go back and forth, so that if a teacher was participating, or students were participating, it could happen, they could enter at any point, and they could move around within that Venn diagram any way that they wanted. And you're going to hear a lot more about this on Monday. I just wanted to give you a quick preview. We have events and opportunities for engagement. That's where we're going to really get people excited about the climate campaign and hook them in and get them really interested and engaged. The yellow area there is basic foundations, so climate science, making sure that everybody has the basics to move forward. And the bottom circle there, which is supposed to be blue, doesn't look blue from here, but that's the actual research investigation areas. There was a workshop in beautiful Geneva, Switzerland in January of 2009 that I know some of you were able to go to or participate virtually online. And during that time, we convened a group of climate experts and education experts. And these climate experts actually gave us some areas of focus to look at in terms of climate. What are the salient issues and things that would really engage students? And the 4 topics that you see there are the ones that were recommended by the climate science community. For those of you that are not visual learners, I have the text. So we have events, These are climate-focused events. Again, World Water Day and Live Earth were kind of the beginning stages to make sure we had a nice event process. The foundations, climate science basics, learning activities, professional development, these were determined in consultation with our NASA scientists that were working with the GLOBE program. We now have NOAA scientist liaison as well. And it was really an interesting conversation, as Lynn Chambers can attest to. We've had many discussions about trying to narrow it down because there's so many things that are important to climate. And at one point, I don't know, we had a list up and there were like 40 variables. And we're like, that's not going to work in the classroom. So we're looking really at temperature and precipitation as core knowledge, radiation, non-atmospheric influences, feedback loops, and time scales are really all very critical to understanding climate. So we're hoping with the GLOBE Program Office, again, to provide a framework, and that if you have resources that work really well for teachers in helping them understand these various components, that's where we want to plug those in. And the pilot testing that you'll hear about on Monday actually is an invitation for you to join and contribute those materials. And I think somebody asked about that before, about how can we contribute and leverage existing materials out there about clouds or whichever. These are the 4 focus areas that I'll just point out again. Right now, again, you'll hear a little bit more on Monday. Right now, our plan is to launch the climate campaign in September of 2011 with 2 research investigation areas, exploring ecosystems, both terrestrial and aquatic ecosystems and climate, and then looking also at carbon, energy, and your footprint. And I'm really hoping to, again, talk to a lot of you because I know that you're working on these areas. You'll notice also that those 2 map very closely to some of the Earth System science projects. That was very intentional. And then as time goes on, we'll hopefully be able to support additional research investigations in climate focused around large-scale extreme weather, global weather events, and air pollution and human health. The last thing that I wanted to do, and I'm conveniently out of time, is to give you a little preview of what we're going to talk about this week, because our team has been working very closely with the ESSPs to make sure that we have a really nice coherent experience for you that gives you something to take away from this meeting, go back to your areas and start engaging your teachers on, and then we'll keep providing you with more information. But just really quickly, the first thing that we'll do is explore weather and climate through observations. That's the field day. We all get to go explore all the wonderful areas near and around Calgary. On Sunday, we will reconvene and we will make sense of those field observations. What just happened? We'll also look at data. Very specifically, we'll talk about my NASA data and some of the other data that you heard about this morning. There will be the equivalent of a full day focused on Earth system science, and there will be some information on how you can integrate into your Earth system science projects climate or climate wrappers. And then we will conclude most of the PD, and I shouldn't say conclude really, but we will kind of Monday afternoon start talking a little bit more detail about the Student Climate Research Campaign and how you can participate and contribute. And so I would like to end there, and I know we are scheduled for a break, and so rather than do a question and answer, I would invite any of you to talk to me or any of the GLOBE Program Office staff in science and education. And again, thank you very much for the opportunity to introduce this to you, and I look forward to talking with you all over the next couple of days.
Thank you very much, Donna. I think you and the GLOBE Program Office are to be commended. Is this on? Yes, it is. Are to be commended for GLOBE science and education. And I add the word technology because we're into a new world order with this that will help students learn and help what teachers teach and teachers learn at the same time. We talked, some of the questions earlier talked about best practices. Well, it's kind of a relative thing. You're doing with your community, with your kids, and if those are English as a second language group or they happen to be challenged in a particular way, doing something with them may not be comparable to what someone would do other class types. So we're looking at what I would always say is instead of just best practices,